Hello there, I'm Scotty. You're not, and welcome back to ScottyTV. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but this was planned to be the next episode, so I guess I kept on with it, because I had access to Netflix, watched the first season or part, and then they said, "Oh, we're gonna bring it back," and then I lost access, and I got access again, so I finished it up and watched all three parts of that 90s show, which is a sequel series to that 70s show. I heard the cancellation, and I'm like, I was kind of upset. After watching through all three parts, though, now that I finished it, I don't know. I can't say that I see why it was canceled, because it was steady throughout the three parts that it had. It was steady in the storytelling. However, I can see where the viewership may have dropped. And that's, if you're expecting certain things to happen in part 2 and 3, and that just didn't happen. And by that I mean the old characters, which is what a lot of people came to watch this show for. Like, I understand. I think it's the same problem that Girl Meets World had, is that they relied, I think that 90s show tried to kind of cut that out before it got to that point, but like the first 2 seasons of Girl Meets World relied on the Boy Meets World characters so much that by the time they went to season 3, which is not a bad season if you are watching it for the current Girl Meets World characters, because they kind of back off on the Boy Meets World stuff, except for maybe Sean is in there, and then the finale has a whole bunch of cameos. But like, other than that, they kind of dropped all those characters to kind of focus on the current characters. So in part 1, you get a bunch of those former characters, and then when, like, you get Kelso, Jackie, Fez, Eric's in the first episode. Brett and Kitty are main characters, and Donna pops in from time to time. But after that, in part 2, who do you get? Mitch? Fenton? Fenton's in part 1 too, but like, Mitch, that's their big returning character, Mitch. And then you get Leo, and he's like in a couple episodes in the first season. One episode in the, like, part 2 or 3. Part 2, 3? One of them. And like, but then they're replaced by Jay and Silent Bob. I know they have names, but it's Jay and Silent Bob, except for Bob Talks. Silent Bob Talks. Oh, and Bob is back. They bring him back a little more full-time than... But like, yeah. The main plot of the series that they put forward when they announced it was that Eric and Donna's daughter, because every reboot has to be blank and blank character from first series daughter. Is no one allowed to have boys? Well, Kelso is, apparently. But he already had a daughter, so that doesn't count. We'll get to her. Because there's age issues in this. But their daughter, who is 14 at the time that it starts, that is important, goes to visit. They go to visit for some, what is it? Like the 4th of July, I think, is what they're there for. And they decide she's going to stay there for the whole summer, although Eric is kind of pushing against it, which leads us to probably one of the funniest things, not the funniest thing in the show, is Eric becoming Red, essentially, and saying, you get in that car, or I'll put my foot in your ass. And I love Red's response, where he's just like, I have never been prouder. You got Kitty going, oh, Eric. And then Donna's just like, so bad. That was so bad. Like, he I don't know. But yeah. So the thing is that she gets there. She starts meeting these friends. You got Gwen, who lives next door in Donna's old house. And she has a brother named Nate. Now, they do the thing, because this came out in the 2020s. It's illegal to have an all-white cast, apparently. And that's fine. add a little color to it. That's fine, you know. But they do the thing where they're like, oh, we don't care about casting. So Gwen is a black character in a family that's mostly white, except for her dad. But like her mom, by Andrea Anders, she's white. Her brother's white. So I guess she's mixed, technically. But the actress doesn't look mixed, although I guess you can't tell by sight, so I'm not going to judge. But ow! My table attacked me for that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to judge, but it just looks like they hired a black actress to play mixed. She is lighter skin tone, but you know, Gwen's the rebellious one. As far as archetypes for these characters, they don't necessarily follow the original. Like, so if we're trying to equate these characters to the original, Leia is pretty much Eric. She got a little Donna in there, but she's pretty much Eric. Eric before he was just nerd. Like season 1 and 2 Eric, when he was nervous teenage character Eric. Gwen would be Hyde, the troublemaker, you know. You have Jay Kelso, who obviously is Kelso, but then there's also Gwen's brother Nate, who is also a Kelso. I mean, not that he's a Kelso, he just kind of acts like it. And people are like, well, I think Kelso is Nate's dad, because we never get that. Who is his dad? Just because the actor has the hair similar to what Ashton Kutcher used to have, although his hair was cut from part 2 on. But I'm just saying. And then there's Ozzy, the required gay character for every show now. Nothing against him, he's a great character, but it just seems like every show now just needs to have a gay character. And well, he's handled better than most gay characters from the 90s. I'll tell you that much. He's handled well. But there's a scene when he comes out to Kitty. Even though he's pretty much out, he just sort of, you know, they make a big deal about it, even though at this point he already came out to someone. Like, one of his things on a list that he was doing was come out to some stranger he never has to see again. And so he went skydiving and told the guy before he jumped out that he was gay. I don't know, it's supposed to be a joke, I don't know. Red and Kitty are back in perfect form, of course. They're great on the show. Red especially. You know, it's more of the same that you expect from these characters. But yeah. So, let's talk about That 70s Show's characters that show up. So, of course, we get Eric and Donna right away. They're bringing her there. It was announced, they're like, oh, Deborah Jo Rupp and Kerwin Smith are coming back for the show. But they didn't say anyone else. And then they just started to spread in, Lord Preppon's coming back. And then they said, oh, yeah, he's coming back to Topher Grace. He's only in the pilot. That's it. Otherwise, they give reference to what he's doing. Like, when part 2 starts, like, oh, Eric, I wish Eric could have come, but he was sick. And then halfway through the episode, she's like, I think Eric was lying to me about being sick. Like, he just didn't want to go there. I don't know what Topher Grace issue. Maybe he's doing other things. I don't know. And he's wearing this horrible-looking wig when they came in. Like, I've heard complaints that, like, everybody else has modernized, but he still looks like he's in the 70s. Yeah, but that's probably because, I don't know how Eric Fulmer would look in 1995, which is when this takes place. But then you have a cameo appearance from Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis as Kelso and Jackie. And this was an issue for me. I've kind of just let it go now, but they're married, and I went, not that. That was, no, but they're married, and I went, no. It doesn't make any sense. They were constantly at each other's throats when they were dating. They were going back, but Kelso is a serial cheater. I can't speak English. And even here, they just take that and make it a running joke. Oh, we're getting remarried for the third time. Ha. Ha ha. Because they keep breaking up and get back together. That's what they did on the last show. They did it now, and they have the son named Jay. No, I didn't hate that she got with Fez. People were like, oh, Jackie and Fez, that's so out of nowhere. And I'm just like, no, the fuck it's not. Like, there were hints of something going on. Like there was something. Fez, at one point, states, I will do anything I can to take Jackie away from you. Like, his one goal is to get with Jackie. And he does that. But, no, they put Kelso and Jackie back together, and you're not changing my mind on this. The only reason they did it is because the couple was married in real life. If there was one person that Jackie Burkhart should have ended up with, it's Stephen Hyde. Which, see that elephant in the room. Let's talk about that. Obviously, Danny Masterson could not come back to the show due to his allegations against him. But I think the biggest crime with Hyde, with this, the biggest victim to come from all of this is the character of Stephen Hyde. Yeah, I feel, all those victims, that's bad. That's bad. It's terrible. Shouldn't have happened. But the character of Hyde is completely washed away from all canon. They don't mention him once. And I get it. You don't want to... But I get you don't want the actor anywhere near this. Fine. And I'm not saying recast him, but make a reference. You know? And it's so easy with the character of Hyde. Like, someone can throw a reference to Hyde being in prison or something. That's why he's not there. They just never mention him. Throughout all 3 parts, he's never mentioned. At all. You know? And he was a big part of the show. It just feels like, actor aside, you should at least, it's like Jeepers Creepers, right? The director did some very bad things, but you throw that to the back burner and you appreciate what they gave us. You know, it's also in the same vein of Chris Benoit. Terrible person, allegedly. Terrible person. Terrible person. We'll just say terrible person. I'm not going to get into that. Terrible person. But you appreciate the great matches he gave you, and all the great moments that they gave you. The characters, the wrestler, whatever. The person behind closed doors, who cares about them? You talk about, you care, but I'm just saying, forget about what they do behind doors and think about the characters they gave us, the movies they gave us. Jeepers Creepers is a great movie. Stephen Hyde's a great character. Chris Benoit, the professional wrestler inside that ring, one of the best. But everyone likes to just erase everything. And it's almost as if the character of Hyde didn't exist, because when they talk about stuff, when the old characters talk about stuff, he's not brought up once. And then there's Fez. Fez is an unfortunate character in all this. Because he has maybe the most appearances in the first part, besides Donna. He has an arc, really, a story to him, where he is dating the neighbor lady. He's dating Gwen and Nate's mom. They're a couple. I'm like, okay, that's cool. He even solves his feud with Fenton by giving him a wig. And then we never see Fez again. And much like with Hyde, he's not mentioned. And he's never brought up even by the I don't know what the hell her name is. The mom, I forgot her name. Gwen's mom, not brought up once. At one point, Gwen's dad comes back and they hook up. And I'm just like, his name is Otis, and no, it's not the wrestler. African American gentleman. They hook up, and I'm like, but what happened to Fez? She should be like, well, I have a boyfriend. He's out of town at a fashion convention or something. He's I don't know, but he's not mentioned. You can't even write him off. They write Leo off. Yeah, they write Leo off. With like he's in a couple episodes of part 1, and then towards the end of part 2 he shows up again before Jay and Silent Bob show up, and it's revealed that Silent Bob is his son. I know it's Kevin Smith playing the character of Sonny, but like it's Jay and Silent Bob. Just Silent Bob talks. That's all it is. And they overstay their welcome because they're in this episode where they crash through. You've seen the trailer where they crash through the wall. Something that isn't inherently the gang's fault, really. Yet the gang is the one that's going to get in trouble for it because it happened. See, you watch that trailer and you hear Leia go, I'm in so much trouble. I'm like, you're really not. It seems like these people just crashed through like you had no connection to them. And they don't really, other than they're connected to Leo. But like, the whole scenario here is that Bob has moved back. In part 2, Bob moves back to Point Place. And he is watching over them while Ren and Kitty go to Paris. So he's on watch, and they trick Bob into going out by himself. I remember how that worked. And then they have a party that they didn't really want to have, and they try to get everyone to leave, and then they go through the wall. So they think they're going to be in trouble. Then Bob shows up, and then Ren and Kitty show up. And it's like, how do they explain it? And then Nate takes the blame for it so he can impress Nikki, because at this point, Nikki, a character I haven't mentioned yet, is Nate's girlfriend. It's kind of like her. It's kind of like Kelso and Jackie, but Nikki is likable. Unlike Jackie that you just want to throw out a window. I'm just. You'll have lunch when I'm done with the video. It's yelling at me now. It's talking. You ever. Attitude. That's what I get. Attitude from this thing. Anyway. So yeah, and so it's like Nate takes the blame. But then nothing really comes of it because him and Red sort of connect. He fixes the hole, Nate fixes the hole, and he's like, it becomes like it becomes a moot point because there's nothing, They do have 90s references, and I think this handled the best in part 1. They talk about, I want to rent Clerks and all that stuff, and Blockbuster and all that, and then for some reason after that, in parts 2 and 3, they decide to, they bring back the fantasy element like from the original. Well, that was kind of tongue-in-cheek type stuff. This one's just weird. Like, Leia has a fantasy where she's in the music video for that song by Lisa Loeb. You say, I only do what I want to, or whatever. And then Lisa Loeb shows up and is like, why are you in my apartment? What are you doing here? And kicks her out, then sings the song herself. In Leia's fantasy, I don't know. And then Lisa Loeb shows up in real life later, I think. No, she's like an invisible person. Like only Leia can see her. I don't know. And then there's like a Clueless parody. There's a whole, like, the one fantasy that worked was after Leia and Jay have sex, and she has a fantasy about having sex. That's very much in the vein of the original series, like Eric and his panties or stuff like that. That feels very much like the original show. Where these other ones, just like, I don't know. The Clueless one does feel like it, I don't know. And there's more reference or more thrown out there, like in part 2 and 3, like Jay at one point is like, I'm like Keanu Reeves, but hotter. And I'm like, what? What? That's so random. In 1995, Keanu Reeves didn't really have anything until Speed. Point Break. Point Break was when they hit him. So, like, I guess he's riding on Point Break at this point, but, like, Speed is where his career really starts to pick up. I don't know. That's not the worst the continuity gets in this, because they decided to introduce the character of Betsy. and she's too old. Kinda. The continuity is weird. So it feels like when the people who are writing this or producing this show did the math, but when they did the math for this, they did it from how long it's been since the show has been off the air and not how long it's been between the end of the first one and the beginning of this one. So like I said, this takes place in 1995. It's the start of the show. And they say that the character of Leia she turns 15 in the summer of 1995. Which means she would have been born in 1980, which means Donna should have already been pregnant at the end of the series. Randy is Leia's father confirmed. I'm just saying, if we're going by that logic, a lot of people said, "Oh, they're just ignoring season 8." Yeah, but Eric still left, so she'd still have to be someone else's daughter if this is in the continuity. They also say that Jay Kelso and Jackie's son is 16 when the show starts. So that means Jackie would have already had to have the baby during the final season of the show. And I'm just throwing this out there. Jay's mom is Pam Macy. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know. And then you have the curious case of Betsy Kelso. So Betsy Kelso was born in 1979 during the beginning, around season 6, which is when it was 1979. She was born in 1979, which means by 1995, she'd be 15. Not 15, 17. She's 2 years older than the other. She should be way older, but she'd be 17. But that's not how they present her. She's older than that because she's ordering beer at a bar. She's acting older. She says she's older than Jay, which is true. Or Jay says she's older, which is true, but I don't know. And she starts dating Nate, which should be illegal because technically she's supposed to be 17, but the character is not. And it's implied they slept together. That's still legal. But the character is 17. Yeah, but that's not how she's portrayed. Because she's ordering beer, she's got to be at least 21. And that's where the math comes in. Because if you do the math of how long it's been between shows since the character was born, the character would have born... So the show ended in 2006, right? Which means the character would have been born in 2003. No, 2004. Right? Which would make her 20... 19, season 1 would be 19, 2024, she'd be 20. She still would be old enough to get it. How did I do that? Hold on. Season 6, 98, 99, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. So it'd be 2003. She was born early 2006, right? Early to mid. To 2003. So she'd be 21 around this point. That's how old she'd be now, currently, from when she was born. But within the show's continuity, it's only been 17 years. She'd only be 17. She's only 17. Yeah. But that's not how they portray it because they did their math based on how long it's been since the show's been off the air. So... yeah. Well, not since the show's been off the air, since the character was born on the show, is what I mean. But yeah, it's confusing. It does it, you gotta turn your brain off with that. Also, I want to talk about some of the stuff. So, in the original series, they were the characters. They did a lot of bad things, but you could accept it because these were, all except for maybe Mila Kunis, they were 20-something-year-old actors portraying teenagers. this show, they actually got teenagers to play the roles, except for Betsy. She's like 25. But mostly, they're all teenagers playing the role. Ozzy is the youngest. The actor was 13 when it started. So, yeah. And they're basically doing the same thing the original characters did. They're drinking beer, they're smoking weed, and those circle sequences. I didn't notice this when I watched the first part way back when it first came out. But watching it this time, they use an effect. The original show, they used actual fog to kind of reenact. Here, they're like, let's just use CGI fog, and it looks terrible. And what's worse, they do this with every time they're in a circle, including in the last episode, when they're on a roof outside. They still use the fog effect. It wouldn't fog when you're outside. Because I'm watching, I'm like, oh, okay, this should be the best looking one because they're outside. Theoretically, a circle wouldn't work outside because the whole point of the circle is to be in an enclosed area and let the smoke fill so you get that contact high. I never do this stuff. I knew people who did, and I know how that works. You're outside, you're just going to get it from that. So, yeah, it wouldn't work as well as, but they portray it as it's still the, whatever. Yeah. Nate and Nikki break up. They're trying to make them the next Kelso. They break up, but then they're sleeping with each other, but then they don't get back together, and then they get back together in the last episode. The last episode pissed me off with the ending. I knew there wasn't going to be a conclusive ending, but there's a cliffhanger. Yeah, they get caught smoking the weed on the roof after they've convinced Donna to let her stay there for the school year. And then it's left up in the air whether or not they're going to stay or not. And you go, well, the show's canceled. She's not staying. I don't know. I'd like the ending to part one because it felt like a complete story where they're hanging out for most of the episodes and then she goes home. And it's like, okay, but are you going to do that for every season where it's like, I got to go home now and it's going to be, you know, that's also going to be a thing for the aging too, is you got the characters getting older and then you got filming schedules and when you can do those. So they're going to look different. Like Jay goes through like a transformation as well. Like he looks much older than he did, you know, but like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, yeah, like I said, Mitch shows up and it's really just, hey, remember this guy? You know, and for some reason he didn't know that Bob was Donna's dad. He was around the foreman's basement. He didn't once bump into Bob. I mean, season 6, he's basically a secondary main character. He's around a lot, and then he just disappears. And I don't like his mustache. Sorry, Seth Green, I don't like your mustache. I'm on the talk. I don't like your mustache. It just makes you look creepy. I love Seth Green, but his mustache is weird. He's the manager of the Hot Topic when Gwen is working there, and Leia wants to work there, and then at the end, in part 3, he quit that job and is now in a support group for men that Nate was in, and he brings Bob there, and then Red shows up, and yeah. Wayne Knight has a cameo in an episode where Red has a heart palpitations after hearing that Leia intends to have sex with Jay. Yeah. And if you don't, this is a little bit problematic because, well, first you see this and you think, oh, no, Red's having an angel visit from the angel. But no, he's not the same character. There's like a It's a Wonderful Life episode where Wayne Knight shows up as an angel. I don't know, he's basically the Clarence. Whatever. It's a little more grounded, I think, too, because there's not a lot of the fantasy stuff. So when the fantasy stuff does happen, I want to say it's not once per episode. I think they get spread out a little bit more, but yeah. But I do think that, because I noticed this last night while watching, I said there's a noticeable difference between part one, which really had me, you know, I was really into it because it had the balance of, oh, look, there's the old cast and the new cast, and there was the promise of doing more of that. But then, much like with Girl Meets World, we're just focusing on the current cast. Oh, and there's Donna and there's Mitch. Fenton shows up in the last episode. Wayne Knight is here. You know, I don't know. They bring back the Hub. Unfortunately, you can't have Mitch Hedberg. He passed away, but bring back the Hub. Also, yeah, I forgot about that. Nikki dates another guy, and that doesn't really go anywhere. I don't know. It's not as it's trying to be risque, but the original series was also risque on network TV, and this is Netflix. But because it's trying to go to a lower denomination of viewers, it can't be that. So you get a few sort of like shit or you're dick. You know, you're not referring to that, but like no, we're like Red, you're a dick or something like that. You know what I mean? But they don't go too far out of their comfort zone. This I heard someone say this feels like if Nickelodeon produced it, but Nickelodeon wouldn't allow you wouldn't get the smoking weed, which you still don't see it, but like, I don't know. I don't remember this from the original show, but there's like a smoke curling up here. It's supposed to say that like someone's holding it or something. I don't know. I remember they had the thing behind him. There was maybe it's an incense and it's just here instead of in between them. I don't know. I think this show was well done. I just feel like I feel like it needed a better balance of new and old characters. I think they brought Bob in to like, oh, because like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis like, no, we're done, we're not coming back. When Valderrama says he wasn't coming back, and it's like, and then Tova Grace never showed up. It's like, oh, Laura Prepon basically directed every episode in the last part except for one, so she's around a lot because she was directing, so she's popping in and out. And then there's this whole subplot with, oh, Eric's gonna go. By the way, this is a big fucking continuity error. Okay, in 1996, Eric Foreman gets a job to go to the Skywalker Ranch to shadow George Lucas as he makes the new films. Bullshit. The new movies weren't made till 1999. I doubt they're doing anything in 1996. I could see 98, but this is 1996. I don't. Maybe they had the idea what they're doing. Maybe he's writing the movie in '96, but I don't think he need anyone to shout. Are we trying to say Eric Foreman helped write the new Star Wars? Did he come up with Jar Jar? I don't know. I just think they wanted to make a reference to the new Star Wars movies and weren't sure they were gonna make it to 1999, so they threw it in, and it doesn't make any sense. It's too early. It's too early for that. But that's the whole thing, although they're living in Chicago, which they say is 3 hours away. How the hell is Chicago 3 hours away from Wisconsin? Is Illinois right next to Wisconsin? I don't know. I can't picture the map in my head. Maybe it is. I don't know. But, and then they make it all about, oh, it was Donna's choice to go there and this and that. And then there's a whole thing about, oh, they're going to move there and move back. It makes sense that they would move Leia to the living there, as it makes sense to, if the show was going to continue, we'd have to make it so that it wouldn't be just every summer or something. Oh, I also want to bring up, so, beginning of part 2, I gotta bring this up. Beginning of part 2, they make reference to her coming to visit during spring break. We never saw anything, and strangely enough, none of the plot points that were left behind were resolved during that either. At the end of season 1, or part 1, whatever, Leia and Nate almost kissed. Almost. But nothing happens. Nothing happens. But nothing was ever brought up You could have resolved it off screen. You didn't need to go through all this because it becomes a big drama thing for the first half of this part. Not even the half of the season. It's 2 seasons. Season 2 is in 2 parts. But the first half of this part is about, oh, are we going to tell him? Oh, we're not going to tell him. And then she walks in when Ozzy's trying to win a radio contest, and it's heard all over the place, and they get pissed. And then, like, for some reason, both Nikki and Jay are pissed at nothing. Nothing happened, and Jay's like, no, you betrayed me. But like nothing happened. They make a big deal out of this whole thing when nothing happened. They didn't kiss. They were like this, but nothing happened. And I'm like, oh, but it only didn't. But oh, if Gwen didn't walk in, it would have happened. You don't know. Probably, but it didn't happen. And that's the main thing, is that it didn't happen, but they're acting like it did happen. Because at one point, Jay's like, you cheated on me. I'm like, no, she didn't. And, yeah, you cheated on me. Pretty bold coming from a Kelso. I'm just saying. A Kelso yelling at someone for cheating is like the pot calling the kettle black. I'm just saying. Kelsos have no, whatever. But yeah, I had to bring that up, even though I'm pretty much done with this video. I had to bring it up because that's bullshit. It's just pushing the drama when it's not needed. Like, nothing happened, and they make a big deal about it. Like, oh, we gotta tell them. No, you fucking don't. Like, you don't. Like, oh, my conscience. It's nothing happened. Your conscience shouldn't be telling you nothing. You don't need to say anything. They make a big. It's like what's gonna happen? They don't even really go anywhere with it because they're like, oh, we don't actually like each other. You think it's going to be a love triangle or a square or whatever with Nikki, but nothing. Like I said, Nate and Nikki break up, but it has nothing to do with that. They're just arguing with each other. Oh, maybe we should break up. But then it's like, they're not really broken up, but they are, because Nate dates Betsy, and then Nikki's with another dude. But I don't know. It's confusing. They get back together, kinda. They end up kissing. I never say they're back together, but I don't know. Overall, I liked the show. I would have liked it to continue at least for one more season, but Netflix cancels everything. Someone sneezes. Oh, Netflix canceled another show. They canceled Obliterated, which is another show I liked. But again, like I said in that review, I don't know how they would have continued it for a second season. But this they could have continued. I don't understand why anyone tries to get shows. I don't get why Netflix still has any credibility at this point. Because they're constantly canceling shows after the first and second seasons. Why anyone tries to go to Netflix to get to produce their shows is beyond me. Because it's basically a game of chance. Because even if your show was good, and if there was something, I didn't look up the figures, but like if there was a viewership drop, it's because of they didn't have as many appearances from the older cast, which is why people really wanted to watch this show. They're like, oh, I want to, and yeah, to my point before, like Girl Meets World is good. And I've said this before, I'm not, like, if you do it in a reboot of a show, I want it to be more of the show that I like. Essentially it's a revival. So you're reviving the show that we had before. I don't want to focus on a character's child or anything. Fuller House, I think, is one of the best examples of this, where it's like, the kids are there, but we're mostly following the adults. You're following DJ and Steve, and you're following all that. Here, it's like, no, we're just gonna make this for kids and teens. Where it's like, I like the show, like I said, but it's also one of those where it's like, I understand why it probably dipped out, because those who were fans of the original show watched part 1 and went, okay, this is not what I wanted, and then didn't come back for the next part. I would have come back for the next part if I had Netflix at the time. But I'm just saying, that's probably what happened, because they're like, people who want an actual revival following the characters we know and love, and you give us their children, that's not really. I don't understand why they haven't learned this yet. Like I said, Fuller House had a good combination of that. The kids were there, but they weren't the main focus because that's not what the show was supposed to be. Because you're following the kids that were already on the show as adults. They had kids, but, the kids were part of the plot, but they weren't the main focus. And that's how it worked. And everyone thought, oh, Netflix did that, so they'll do it here. And that's not what they got. In conclusion, I think it's a decent show. I wish it had more episodes, but it's not better than the original. But I love going back here. There were people complaining that I think just are ignorant. They're like, "Oh, why is it a '90s show? Shouldn't the conclusion be the '80s show?" They did an '80s show. It sucked. It's been something I haven't wanted to cover, but like I need to cover for a short-lived. But the show sucks. There's no connection to the original other than they say that the main character, Corey, played by Glenn Howerton, is Eric's cousin. Although it's never brought up on the show. It's just something behind the scenes they said. Spit over my arm. But no, it sucks. But yeah. So what are your thoughts on that '90s show? And when it comes to, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I've been trying to get a drink for like the last 15 minutes, and I just keep holding that. I put it down, pick it up, hold it up. Sorry that drove you crazy. What are your thoughts on that '90s show? Let me comment so much, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.